Sir, your audio is not audible.
Yeah. Is it okay now?
Yes, sir. Perfectly fine, sir.
Okay. A very good afternoon for all the participants, the attendees from ICMAI. My name is Balaji. Just to give a quick introduction about myself. Please confirm, Kunal, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I can hear you, sir.
Okay, great. So my name is Balaji, as I said, and I come with 35 plus years of corporate experience. Started my career with L&T, then L&T Infotech, then Wipro, and then SAP. The last role I was playing was was with SAP India. And if anybody is using Geo phones, the Geo billing runs on SAP platform, and that was delivered under my leadership for Reliance Geo. So that's just a very quick background about me. And the topic I'm going to take today is something very different from what you have been listening from Mr. Nagraj, our faculty. Okay, so before I even get into the topic that I'm going to cover, if anybody has any questions, I would like to spend first 5-10 minutes on those questions about whatever sessions you've had till now, and whatever training that has been conducted till now, and any questions in general. And then I'll be starting off my session. Um, I kept my live chat open. So anybody has any questions, you're most welcome to ask me questions. I'll just wait for a couple of minutes. If there are any questions, I will address it. Then I will quickly get into my topic. I'll just wait for a couple of minutes. In case there are no questions, then I'll be jumping into the topic. Okay, let me not waste time. I see more than 100 attendees, but no questions on the chat. So, well, let me give you a few points that you must all note. The particular session that I'm going to cover today, I'm just going to quickly switch to my slides. This is not a part of the original content that you have got, and is definitely not applicable for assessment. So if somebody is going to ask me, how many questions will I get for the assessment from this particular session? The answer is no. There'll be no. This session is not included in the assessment. This is purely additional information, practical information that we are giving as an add-on, as a value add, so that just in case somebody has to face an interview or is getting into a discussion on SAP and its implementation and whatever you learned about SAP, that is where this would be very, very helpful. This is absolutely practical knowledge sharing session and has nothing to do with the original content and the assessment. So I repeat, it is not a part of, so most of the slides that you would see that I'm going to present, maybe 7-8 slides, you will not find any of these content in the content that has been shared with you. Okay, some here and there, yes, but not fully. It is not applicable for assessment. So I'm sure you guys are aware that you will be attempting an assessment, an MCQ assessment, and based on that only you will be getting your pass certificates or whatever from the SAP training perspective. So this is not applicable for that assessment. Now, why are we doing this session? This session has been conducted purely as an additional information for each one of you, so that you get updated on practical knowledge. This is purely a practical knowledge sharing session. Now, then why is it being taken by Balaji and not Nagraj? Balaji is the person who has started his career as an SD consultant, then MMFI, and has delivered more than 150 projects across 17 countries. So I just thought, with this experience that I have, I should be sharing this little bit of whatever I have learned about methodology, about the evolution of SAP, and that would be helpful for each one of the participants out here. Now, how will this be helpful? This will be helpful maybe in future if somebody is taking up an interview for an SAP role, or even during your general discussions. Plus, if anybody is lucky to get into an implementation project, this is going to be very, very helpful for them. So with this as the premise, I would like to start my session. Firstly, I would like to explain you what exactly is HANA. I think this has already been done by Nagraj. I've seen the content, it is already there, but I would just like to give you another perspective of the whole thing. SAP started in the year 1972. It was 4 IBM engineers. Those days it was known as IBM mainframe, who logged out of IBM and started a company in a small village called Waldorf in Germany. Waldorf is, I think, 25-30 kilometers from Frankfurt. Even today, it remains to be a small village, though it happens to be the SAP's headquarters. And if anybody is lucky to be there, I've been there multiple times. The SAP cafeteria serves Indian food. Now that just gives you a view about the number of Indians over there. And there are lots of Indian restaurants in that village called Waldorf. Okay, as I said, Waldorf is near Frankfurt. So in the year 1972, they started a mainframe application called R2. Now, why is it R2? It was a two-tier architecture. You have the database and you have the front end. That's it. It was pure mainframe architecture, two-tier architecture. In the year 1992, they came up with a three-tier architecture, wherein you have a database layer, and then you have an application layer, and then you have a client layer. Now, what does this mean? This means the front end is different, which you will also be experiencing it in something called GUI, graphic user interface. Then you have an application layer which holds all the logic. Now, if you do this, what has to happen? If you do this, what has to happen? That logic is there in the application layer. Then you have the backend database, where all the data is stored and structured. It is kept in a particular structure where data can be retrieved, etc., etc. Okay, and I'm sure you will agree with me. In the year 1992, there was nothing called internet. There was no mobile, and there were only computers. Okay, my own experience I would like to share here. The first time when I went to US, when was that? That was in first time I went to Europe, not US, 99. I was carrying a Siemens NISTOF laptop whose size was some 500 MB. Okay, and then don't ask me the weight, forget it. And then when I went to US for the first time, I bought a USB for 1 GB, and the whole world laughed at me. You have wasted so much of money for buying a 1 GB USB. That's memory stick. Today, if I tell this as an example, people would either not believe it, or will say I'm just faking, or will say I'm sort of not in the proper senses. But this was the reality way back in 2000. Today, most of our mobiles have more than 50, 60 GB or whatever. And I also do conduct lots of trainings. I would have met more than 5,000, 6,000 students pan-India in the remotest of the remote villages, including Odisha, where I've been to places like Keonjhar, Sarang, and such places where you would not even heard. You'll find it difficult to find it in the map. Such places, there is not a single student who doesn't have a smartphone. Forget the phone. It is a smartphone. It is mobile. But way back in 92, there was no such thing. In 2000, we had those .coms and .com bust and whatever. The internet was exploding. So in 2004, SAP ERP became mysap.com, wherein you could access SAP system from anywhere over internet. Now in R3, what happened was you will have to come to the terminal. You had to have a computer. That computer is connected to a LAN, which is then connected to the server. There was no internet. In 2004, they launched this MySAP, where you can log in from anywhere to SAP system. Again, those days there was no mobile. Of course, mobile was there. I myself, to share my experience, I paid 16 or 32 rupees per minute for incoming calls. Incoming, forget outgoing. And mobile we used to use as pagers. So somebody makes a call, we used to go to the nearest STD booth and make a call to them. So those days are gone now. I think incoming is totally free, outgoing is almost free. And that's what happened in the year 2015. Now in the year 2015, what happened, if you see the evolution of electronics and various of these instruments like laptop, computers, etc., that people wanted to consume data or wanted to access SAP from their mobile on their move. Pads, tabs were very, very common. And today, everybody wants to do everything on mobile. Now, the challenge that SAP would have is, see, you have a particular screen, which you will see it on a computer, but the same screen cannot be shown on a tab or a mobile. You just see mobile screen is so small. Tab is also much smaller than a laptop or a computer. Now, how do we manage that? That is where a concept called Fiori came into picture. Now, when Fiori concept, I'm sure Nagaraj would have touched upon it. The concept of Fiori is such that the screen is the same across wherever you're consuming the content or wherever you're accessing it from. That is, the screen of a mobile will be the same as the screen in the laptop. The same would be the screen in the computer. Okay, that's how it came in. Now, in the background, what was happening is SAP, if you see, had 80, currently it has 80+% market share in ERP. There was another strong competitor that was growing up that is called Oracle. And if you see, I'm using the word database. So database had to be somebody you will have to buy another database, right, for SAP. And more than 80 to 85% of the SAP customers were using Oracle as a database. Okay, but Oracle also had its own ERP. They bought in multiple companies like PeopleSoft, JD Edwards, and they were planning to create something called Oracle Fusion. Now that's where SAP woke up and they bought a database company called Sybase. Parallelly, they built their own database or a platform. I would use later it became a platform, which is a columnar database, unlike an RDBMS that you have, that is Oracle and others. They created a columnar database called HANA, and then they came up with a complete platform called HANA. On this platform called HANA, they had Fiori. This Fiori would ensure that the screens is the same across any medium of access. Now, what I mean by this is whether you access it on a computer, whether you access it with a laptop or a tab, the screen could be the same, will be the same. And another very important leap that they got with HANA was the processing speed was few hundred times more. Now, in production units, like for example, if there is a factory, you'll have to run something called MRP, materials requirement resource planning. So when you're doing the planning for materials, the whole job used to take 1 or 2 days. So they used to run it only once in a month and find out what materials required when. But today with HANA, you can run it on a daily basis. And every evening you can run this. Same thing would be with a simple P&L statement or a simple P&L statement or a balance sheet. You can run a balance sheet on a daily basis, not required, but still P&L can be run on a daily basis, or I mean, nobody does it, but on an hourly basis, I can check what is the P&L today, what is the P&L now, depending upon what sort of data is coming into your system. Now, that is the advantages that HANA gave. Then they came up with a very different concept, which encompasses HANA's digital core. Around that, they also bought in various products. It was a bottom-up product, incidentally, whether it is Ariba, Fieldglass, Concur, and then Hybris. Okay, SuccessFactors, SAP HR, HCM, that is human capital management, has totally been replaced with the SuccessFactors components. So all these came in, and now this is what we are today with S/4HANA SAP. Now this has been the evolution of SAP, the journey of SAP. Now Concur is a travel management system wherein you can take a picture. Like for example, at this minute, I have traveled to a place called Mumbai. I am in a place called Mumbai, and I'm going to have lunch. And I just take a picture of that photo. I mean, assuming that I'm an SAP, I was an SAP employee, not now. But if I'm an SAP employee, I can just take a picture of that receipt and push it into the system. System will identify where it was taken, and the amount is sort of automatically updated into my travel management system, so that my claims is very easy. Today, typically, most of the companies, what they do, you collect all the bills, you scan those bills, put it into the system, then put a separate claim and then send it. Here, with your mobile, with the Concur application, you can just click a picture and the rest is all taken care. And that's the sort of things that have been common with SAP. It's hard to believe that SAP is so user-friendly today. So that's been the journey of SAP. With this journey also comes certain challenges. Now, one is fine, that's all good. SAP has changed a lot, but then there were a few other changes that was also happening in the IT market. One was everybody used to, even a medium-sized company used to have its own data center. They will have their own server, they will have their own IT team. That IT team will manage the server, database, operating system. Everything used to be managed by them. But then things changed. The concept called cloud came in. When the cloud came in, everything was pushed into the cloud. So they said, you don't need to have a single IT person. We will manage everything for you. You just need to sign a single check. Okay. It doesn't mean that everybody switched to cloud or everybody remained with the on-prem solution. Now with this, the challenge was when you are going to implement SAP, there was a particular methodology with which you are implementing SAP. Will the same methodology can be used even now? So that was a challenge. Okay. Second challenge came up was, see, when we are implementing SAP, okay, when you're implementing SAP, there has to be a standard methodology. Okay, and if you don't have a standard methodology, you will have challenges in terms of each one using a different methodology and getting into problems. Correct? How do we bring in that standard methodology? Okay, how do I bring in the standard methodology? And how will I ensure that everybody uses the same methodology, same templates across the globe? It is not just one company or one country or one state. No, it is across the globe. How do we do it? Okay, that's where initially SAP came up with the concept called ASAP methodology, but that was more from the on-prem solution. But then now the cloud has come in. Will the same methodology work? That's where they came up with a concept which merges the ASAP methodology and also combines the cloud solutions. Then they come out with something called Activate methodology. Now, one, I spoke about the journey. Second, I'm speaking about the methodologies that I'm going to talk about. That methodology is what I'm going to explain in detail. Okay. Now, taking a step back, what was happening is to the left, if you see, this is how the screens look like, and this is what you should be practicing with even now. Though the backend would be HANA, we would like to ensure that the students practice with these screens, because Fiori screens are intuitive. It is, there's nothing to learn on the screen. But SAP screens, if you see, you will have to learn, you'll have to know where to click, you will have to know where to navigate, how to navigate, etc. Okay, so if you see the SAP system access we give you, it is the old screens that you will get. You will not get Fiori, because Fiori, it is just it's all drop down and clicks, and no, you really don't learn much. No, we want you to learn how to use the SAP system. So earlier, the screens, as I told, was in a single desktop. Today, to the right, what you see here is the same screen is available on a tab, on a laptop, on a mobile, etc. So this is the big digital interface change, or the UX change that they brought in. User experience is extremely different and very good with the Fiori systems, which is on HANA. Now, so I think I should take a pause here. I've just been talking for the last 10 minutes. I'll just take a pause here and ask you, are there any questions? Are there any questions? Okay, no questions, not an issue. I will proceed. Okay, so I proceed now. What I'm going to do now is talk about how do we deploy this SAP HANA. What is this HANA? What I talked about, what is there in what is the old system, what is the new system? How do we move it from old system to new system? Is it required to move in? And then I'll talk about how we are going to implement SAP. Now, there are typically three scenarios that happens. Typically three scenarios. One is a customer doesn't have SAP or has no system. So he's a brand new customer for SAP. We just need to implement SAP there. Okay. In this case, what happens? We will implement SAP. That is, in this case, it will be simple S/4HANA. We straight away implement. Where there is no challenges, ERP, non-ERP, non-SAP system, ERP system and non-ERP systems, SAP systems, we implemented. We put it on either SAP S/4HANA, either it's cloud or on-premise database servers, and we implemented as a standard implementation, the methodology which I'm going to talk about later. Now, what happens? There are certain customers who are already on SAP ECC 6 was the last version. There used to be something called enhancement. See, ECC, we started with 3.1, then 4. 4, we had multiple versions. 4.6c was the last, 4.7 was the last, then it became 5, then it became 6. After 6, SAP said we will not have any more new versions. It would be enhancement packages. When it's an enhancement package, EHP as we used to call it, they used to give enhancement packages. If you want, you can add it. Otherwise, you need not use it. They'll be adding functionalities to it. Okay, so EHP, I think 30 or 32 was the last in case of SAP 6. Then came the HANA. Then when HANA is the latest, HANA S4, HANA 2.0, blah, blah, blah. Okay, now, if you are already if you have an SAP customer, how do we move to HANA? This is a conversion of an existing system to HANA. And third was a very challenging thing. That is, you have SAP. I can give an example of HP, Hewlett-Packard. They are across the world. Nestle is across the world. Unilever is across the world. Now, these people are there everywhere, and they have multiple SAP systems. Now, how do I bring them all into a one common system called S/4HANA? That is known as consolidating the current regional landscape into one global S/4HANA system. Now, typically, if you see Reliance Reliance also, Adani, they are global businesses. Now, how do we manage? How do I bring them into one platform? So these are things that is called as landscape transformation. One, straightforward, simple new implementation. Second is system conversion, where you are converting an existing system into S/4HANA system. Third is landscape transformation, where you have multiple landscapes, you have multiple systems which you move into S/4HANA. Now, each one will have its own nuances in terms of how do we manage, how do we deliver, etc. But having said that, yes, the methodology that would be used would be the same. That is the Activate methodology that I'll be talking about. Now, why do we need a methodology for implementing SAP? Why do we need a methodology for transformation? Why do we need it? First and foremost, do we need it? Okay, let me answer that with simple questions. Customers ask, are there best practices? Are there global best practices that I can use? Okay, which means I am doing a particular business process. Is there a different or a better way of doing the same business process? Okay, see, I want to quickly do a proof of concept, POC, before I really jump in for a big investment. Now, there's an investment, let's say, for a 500 crore company will be 2-3 crores. I'm just tossing some numbers, 2-3 crores. Then can I see a small POC before I jump in with the investments? Okay, fine. I've decided to. I'll jump in with SAP. How can SAP guide me to implement the SAP? SAP as an organization, how will you help me to implement it? Okay, fine. It's such a large program. See, in case of SAP, as you are FI guys, right? Finance guys. I keep telling everybody, anything is done in any organization, ultimately it goes and hits finance. Now, what do I mean by that? If a production person produces 10 cars in a day, ultimately complete numbers in the financial statements will change. Okay, like work in progress, in production, stocks, inventory, blah, blah, all the numbers change. So anything and everything will hit finance. So we need strong finance guys. We need very strong costing guys to understand how the costing is done within the system. We need production engineers because they'll have to update whatever is happening in production, assuming it's a production unit. Then we need materials management guys who's going to manage inventory, who's going to manage stores. Then we need sales guys, not just selling in the field, but they should also be updating all that into the system. And of course, all these people are managed by human capital management, HR. You have the personal department managing the HR. So many people are involved in this particular implementation. How do I manage the whole project? How do I ensure that I complete everything within X months? There has to be a process. There has to be various templates that are required. Just imagine the MM guy speaks in Hindi, the finance guy speaks in Kannada, and personal department speaks in Marathi. There's absolutely no communication between them. And are they interlinked? Absolutely interlinked. How are they interlinked? As I said, anything we do ultimately hits finance, which everybody will agree. The materials management guy has to work very closely with the production person. The materials management and production should work very closely with the sales guys. So whatever business processes are there, they'll have to dovetail into their business processes also. With this, we are going to have a large team while implementing SAP system, not while just by implementing, even for simple transformation or even for the system changes or upgrades, you need a team and you will have to have project management that is required to run the show successfully within the time. So was defined the Activate methodology. I repeat, ASAP methodology was already there. Okay, ASAP was there, but that could not be used for cloud deployment. So to ensure this methodology can be used, is compatible in simple words for both cloud and the on-premise solutions, Activate was brought in. Now here, first you have a discover phase, then you have a prepare, explore, realize, deploy, and run. Now what's the key difference? In case of ASAP, we used to do business blueprinting, then realization, pre-go live preparations, and then go live and support. So these were the various phases. Now these are 6 different phases: discover, prepare, explore, realize, deploy, and run. Prepare and realize are the same terminologies that are used, and more or less the task involved is very similar, while discover, explore, deploy, and run is slightly different compared to the ASAP methodology. If somebody in the team who are listening to me have heard of ASAP methodology or have had a hands-on with ASAP. So that's the difference between the old methodology and the current Activate methodology. Okay, now what does it do to an end customer? One, because it is well-defined process, everybody knows what has to be done next and how it has to be done. The cost is going to come down. And just a second. And the time to just a second. The time to value also drastically comes down. It reduces big risk of going big bang. Now, when I say big bang, just imagine the complete company switches from something else to SAP. Of course, they can still do it after proper testing and careful testing. But instead here, you have the possibility of going on an incremental approach. Okay, so as I said, first discover, understand whether it fits in, and then you prepare, do all the basic preparations that are required for the project. Then explore, understand S4HANA solution. What does this application do to me? Is it going to suit me? It doesn't suit me. Where doesn't it suit? What are the gaps? Those things we analyze, document, then realize. When I say realize, whatever we have spoken till now is put into the system and the testing is done. First, initial single testing is done. Then you have the integration testing. Then we deploy it into the product, into after all testing, deploy it into the production system, move all the required data into the system, then manage, that is, run the system. So this is how the Activate methodology and the value that it brings on the table for every end customer. Now, what I'm going to do now is get into the details about each of these phases, and that's what I was planning to do for the day. So just to recap, what are the benefits of Activate? It reduces the cost. Another very important thing that SAP also gives along with this is the various accelerators and templates that are readily available within the system, where we can straight away use it. Okay, project governance and quality management is extremely efficient with this, and it is very scalable methodology, and it also is a part of agile. So the implementation is agile project implementation methodology. When I say agile, you can do one part now and then you can move the next part later, rather than going in for a big bang or a waterfall approach if somebody knows the various methodologies. So instead of that, it is an agile methodology where you can do a small portion, then test it and then move to the next one. So you can keep adding functionalities also. So these are the big benefits you get with Activate methodology. But if you ask me, the biggest benefit that a person or a company gets is that is a globally standard, accepted, used methodology that anywhere in the world you go, the same methodology is being used. So which is very, very important. So when I did a project in Saudi Arabia, those it used to be ASAP, as I just spoke earlier. It used to be ASAP. So I mean, then from there, when I went to the US, so the same methodology is used. No, I need not go back as a consultant, as an individual. I did not have to learn another methodology and then go and talk to them. And the opportunities were more for me because I have done it in Saudi, I've done it in Dubai, UAE, then I've done it in Bhutan, I've done it in Australia, I've done it in Philippines. The same methodology has been used in India also. So that's the biggest advantage I as a consultant would get. So I know it is very predictable for me. It's not that I wake up in the morning, go to the project site and wonder what's going to happen today. No, we are very clear what's going to happen the next day. Okay, so this is about Activate methodology. Now what I'm going to do is deep dive into, I've been using these terms like prepare, explore. What do you do in each of these? So I'll be talking about each of these a bit deeply for the next half an hour, 45 minutes. Then I'll be opening up the whole floor for questions. Okay, so now let's jump in and understand what is done in each. And then further, I'll be drilling down into each of these steps and talk about what do we do in each of these. Okay, one, prepare. During the prepare, first earlier, there is also one more phase, as you can see here in this slide, discover. That is before a customer has decided whether to go in for SAP or not, whether to go in for S4HANA or not. There, what a customer does is they put in their business processes, they bring in and then say what benefits they get. That they're discovering the product. Okay, so now we assume that the customer has decided, discovered, liked it, and they see certain benefits, and they've gone ahead with SAP. Now, first is the prepare phase. Now, this is very common for any project. Any project, it's not that somebody decides on a project and you start jumping into it, you start working on it. There are various things that you need to prepare for. The simplest thing is, first, how do I leverage the best practice? SAP talked about global best practices. How do we leverage that? What is the roadmap? What is the project plan? When will what come? When would the resources be required? What is the mode of communication? What is the escalation metrics? What is the roles and responsibilities of each of them? All these are defined, documented, and signed off during the prepare phase. When I say signed off, what we practically do is, let's say I am the project manager from the implementation company. We or Deloitte, Accenture of the world, Deloitte, Capgemini, Cognizant, Infosys, Wipro, TCS, of course, SAP also do it. LTI, Mindtree, earlier it used to be L&T Infotech. So we all do this implementation. These companies do it. So I, as a project manager, will define all this, document it, sit parallelly with the companies or the customer's project manager, accept to all these, whatever we have said. This is the escalation matrix. This is how we are going to communicate. Imagine the customer is sending all the communication in Hindi, and the implementation team is full of Germans. Obviously, they will not understand German. So what is the language of communication? How will the communication happen? We form a steering committee. What will the steering committee do? How often will they meet? What is the escalation matrix? All these things are very well defined during the preparation phase. Then you go into the, which of course, whatever I spoke will be detailed as we go proceed. I'll just give a high level, then I'll go to the details. Then you explore, you find out what is the design, what is the baseline design. Then you validate the solution with the requirements. Are there any difference or are there any gaps? If there are any gaps, how do we bridge the gap? Should it be with a non-standard development? Should it be with something that we can forego? And then if there are multiple developments, how do we prioritize it? Those things are done. Then you do the realization. During the realization, you actually configure the system. It is here when you actually see the system, you configure the system and do individual unit testing. When I say individual unit testing, finance guys only check whether the finance is okay. Then the production guys will only check whether production is okay. But ERP is an end-to-end solution, right? So, and I spoke multiple times, even in the last half an hour, that whatever is done in the ERP system will finally affect the finance guys. Okay, so what is known as integration testing is done here. Now, what people do is they all come in one place and they do an end-to-end testing. Now, what do you mean by end-to-end testing? Where does the whole thing start? The thing starts with a sales guy giving a quotation. A quotation is created. He creates a sale order. The sale order is pushed into production. When it moves into production, the materials guy come in and say whether there is stocks. If something has to be bought, they release purchase orders. All those things are done. Production is done. Then the sale happens and the invoicing is also done. And then the money comes in. So all the end-to-end processes that we spoke of, which you would have already heard from Mr. Nagaraj about various business processes that he would have spoken in his earlier sessions, the end-to-end processes are tested in integration testing. After the integration testing is done, we go and train the customers. First, we train the trainers who then go and train the end users. After everything is done, there is a testing called user acceptance test where the end user actually tests it and says, fine, looks fine for me. And then they give a sign off. After that is done, the complete system is moved into production. Cut over, which I will explain in the later slides when I'm going to deep dive into each of these phases. End user training happens. And then there is also something in between called go, no go meeting. Should we switch to the new system or not? Is the end customer or the company ready to take over? Are the people well trained to start using the new system? Okay, after go no go decision is taken, once it is go, you switch from the old system to the new system, and then the go live support starts. Now, go live support is something like, like you have our skill training email support. You send an email and then they support. Now, in this case, it cannot be just an email. Like for example, if there is a let me take the example of Bharat Petroleum. Okay, Bharat Petroleum runs on SAP, and the person who's just creating the gate pass or the invoice for a tanker to be filled in and moved out of the gate of a refinery, he has a problem. He's not able to get the invoice. He cannot send an email and wait for 2 days because in every 5 minutes a truck leaves the BPCL refinery. 5 minutes or 4 minutes, whatever it is. So imagine 1 hour means I'm talking about 12 to 15 trucks. If it is in one place, there'll be 10 such gates and 20 such refineries. Imagine the loss, not just the loss, the mess that it will be creating. Then the whole supply chain will get hit. And if the supply chain gets hit, let's say whole day petrol and diesel is not being supplied to petrol pumps across India. What will happen? It'll be chaotic. So there'll be shortage of fuel and this all sorts of mess. So there, the support will be multi-level support, multimodal support as we call it. There will be phone, there will be a super user who will come and jump in, and there is also an email support, etc. And there will be a tool with which they use. Wherever, like for example, you ask me a question, when is the assessment? It is okay if I don't answer now, I can answer it tomorrow also, because assessment is not today, tomorrow. So that will come on email. So this sort of planning is done in terms of how we are going to operate, how we are going to provide post-go live support. Then we switch on to operations. So this is the second level of detailing of Activate methodology. Okay, now I'm going to go to the next level of detailing. Okay, what is that we do exactly in each of the phases? Now, first, I spoke about the prepare phase. Now, in the prepare phase, I've already spoken. We initially prepare for plan and prepare for the project. And what is this planning and preparing? First and foremost, why are you going in for an SAP system? What is the purpose? Just because somebody came and sold? No, it can't be, right? Because they're going to spend crores of rupees, millions of rupees, or crores of rupees, whatever you call it. So there has to be a purpose. There has to be a specific goal. And then at the end of the project, you should evaluate whether is the goal achieved. Next, what is the scope? What is the roles and responsibility of each of the project team? And a very, very detailed project plan. When I say project plan, I spoke about multiple people required. See, I don't want for that matter, nobody would like to be sitting idle and watching somebody else configuring the system for the next 10 days while I'm needed on the 11th day for testing. So a detailed project plan, which clearly says when a person is required, when which team member is required. So that is a detailed plan that is created. Along with that, we also prepare various other plans like risk and mitigation plan. What are the risks in the whole project and how do we mitigate the risk? Then we also have a quality plan. How do we ensure that the quality is maintained across the project? Plus, there is also various other things like testing plan, wherein when do we do the testing, how do we do the testing, and many times where do we do the testing is also there. Okay, and with all these, there is a project charter that is drawn in and handed over to the customer who has to sign off, accept, yes, I accept this. The reason the customer has to accept it is because when there is a project plan, they will have to agree to it because the resources will come from them. Okay, so they accept the plan, they sign off on the plan, and then we go ahead with the project. Okay, we go ahead with the project. We also would have created various templates. Every meeting has to be minuted. Minutes of meeting templates are there. Communication templates are there. There will also be a standard template for quality testing. Testing templates would be there. All those things are put in, and then we complete the prepare phase. Interestingly, as a project manager, I can tell you that from one phase to another, we close the prepare phase and then go to the next phase called explore. That's how we do. There is a phase closure sign off that we take from every customer, and many a times, not always, many a times the payment milestones are directly linked to these phases. So you complete prepare phase, you get this payment, etc., etc. So what we do is we take a project closure phase closure sign off. There is a sign off that happens saying that the prepare phase is closed, and we move to the next phase, that is explore phase. Okay, now I'm going to take a short break here. Before we go for a 10-minute break, I would like to let you ask questions. Let me just check. Are there any questions? Kunal, are there any questions?
Sir, I have already answered 2-3 questions.
Okay.
Which was they have asked.
Okay. How many MCQs are there in such assessment time facility extended?
I have told them to email it, the skill training.
Okay. So how many MCQs are there in such assessment and time? SAP, every topic that you're taught will have an assessment. And I can only talk about what he means by time facility. I don't know. Every question you will get 1 minute to answer. It is an MCQ in the same platform. For SAP, sir, why do they develop SAP? See, SAP was basically an ERP to manage businesses. No, sir, all clear. Okay. You get to the preparation. Yes, you will. So you answered all the questions. So these are the ones that you have already answered. Okay. These are attendance. Okay. Fine. Any questions you can ask me now? We'll just take a short. Typically, how long do you take a break, Kunal?
Normally, it's 10 minutes we take a break, sir.
What time? What time you take a break?
It depends on the faculty whenever he wants to take, like according to that we plan.
Not a problem. So I'll just wait for it's 14:47. I'll wait till 50 and then we'll take a 10-minute break. So this 3 minutes I will wait. Are there any questions? You're most welcome to ask those questions of whatever I spoke in terms of the SAP journey, in terms of methodology, anything. I repeat at the cost of repetition. This is pure additional value add that we are providing. It's practical knowledge that you're going to get. It has nothing to do with your assessment or the content you have. I don't think Activate methodology is a part of the content also. Maybe even if it is there, it is very limited. But of course, business processes and the journey of SAP is already there. Okay, any questions, friends? You can type in. They can't ask a voice question, right, Kunal?
No, sir.
No, they can only type and ask in the chat. Okay. Okay, there are 3 new questions. Let me look into it. Sir, consultants still use Kunal, just hold on, don't answer, I will update. Why SAP upgraded from ASAP to Activate methodology? The reason SAP moved from ASAP to Activate was when the systems changed. When the systems changed, let's say from on-prem to cloud, etc. Then we need to have a methodology that caters to cloud also. So if somebody knows ASAP, like I've used ASAP methodology, there it'll be very difficult to be deploying it on cloud. And when ASAP was popular or was used, the term cloud was not even known. Cloud we only know will be something up in the sky and throws rain. So it is we had to have a methodology that cuts across on-prem and cloud deployments. Okay, so upgraded to upgrade. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, friends, it is 2:50 on my laptop. We take a 10-minute break and we get back at 15 hours, that is 3 p.m. Is that fine, Kunal?
Yes, sir.
Welcome back. Okay, so let me see if there's any questions that I need to take up. CMA is using SAP, how much and what are the ways of rules they get benefited? Okay, when you say CMA, see, CMA is typically your experts in costing. And in my project experience, or whatever I spoke, the toughest or the rarest people whom I used to get was a good project costing guys. Okay, so it's typically a CMA who has good knowledge of SAP is a rare commodity, was a rare commodity. I've been out of this particular market for the last 4 years. But I can definitely tell you that there used to be huge demand for costing professionals in the SAP fraternity. Somebody who is a CMA, basically CMAs are the authority on costing, so no questions about it. And the CMAs with knowledge of SAP is a rare commodity. And what are the ways and rules? One is, of course, as you're learning now, it just can be just the simple end user. Another very important role that is there is you get into a global certification, complete your SAP global certification in management accounting, and then you can become a consultant. And any SAP using company also would prefer, of course, a CMA, so that your knowledge of costing would be, management accounting will be very helpful for various reportings and others. Okay. Okay, let's get back to our methodology. Of course, just to add here that I will be wrapping up the whole session in the next 20-25 minutes. And then we'll be open for questions, general and about what I spoke. Okay, so here I go. Okay, so I spoke about the prepare phase. Now let's go to the explore phase. Just a minute. In the explore phase, what do we do? First and foremost, we show the customer what exactly can SAP do. What exactly does SAP do? Now, once we show them, the customer says, I need it in this particular manner, I want it in this particular way, this is okay and that's not okay. So many times what happens is I have not seen a single customer who has said that we will use best practices. Everybody says my process is unique. And many times it happens that those processes have multiple unnecessary steps which can easily be avoided. But till date, across the globe, we can't just blame Indian customers, American customers, Japanese customers, etc. Across the globe, there is not a single customer who has come back to us and said, look, guys, you tell what process we need to follow, we'll follow. No, everybody says my process is very unique and you'll have to configure this into the system. But that's not why you're getting into SAP. You should be fine-tuning your business processes also along with SAP implementations. Okay, so a baseline is shown to them, and certain changes, certain gaps, fit gap analysis is done. There is a fit gap workshop that gets identified. Then the configurations that are to be done are made into the system. Now, what is a configuration? Please understand. SAP is just a standard software. Okay. I gave the example of BPCL earlier, that is Bharat Petroleum. So when Bharat Petroleum gives an invoice to a petrol pump, let's say, it has to be in a particular format. It has to have certain fields in a particular place, and their currency is Indian rupees, but you can say they're also buying crude oil from wherever, blah, blah. So those things has to be put into the system. The system doesn't know what is $1 to a rupee. So we'll have to tell it. Either we tell directly or indirectly. Now, when I say indirectly, you say go and pick it up from Bloomberg rate or Wanda.com, whatever is the current rate as of 12 noon on a particular date is the exchange rate that we take it into our system. Now, such logic has to be told to the system. Now, when we tell the system, how do we tell the system? We need to configure it. Okay, and then there is also such, I'm sure you would have heard of SOX, Sarbanes-Oxley's Act, and SOD, segregation of duties. Now, what is segregation of duties? It's very, very simple. I'm sure Agraj would have already taken it up, but I'll just explain you in short in a minute. Just imagine I, in my company, will have to buy 100 laptops. For me to buy 100 laptops, imagine I create the request myself. I approve the request myself. I create the purchase order. I choose the vendor. I create the purchase order. And once the material comes, I approve the material into the system and I pay the customer. Now, everything, if it is done by one or two individuals, now what happens is there is a possibility of me manipulating the system. What do I mean by manipulating the system? Maybe instead of 100, only 50 came in because I have checked it myself. Okay. So to avoid all this, thanks to the Enron fiasco that happened in the US, there was an act that was there in the US, Sarbanes-Oxley's Act, or SOX. One of the things that talks about is SOD, segregation of duties. You guys would know more about it, but I'm just sort of touching upon that. Now, under segregation of duties, one person cannot do end-to-end process. It has to be different people. And what is your duty? Well, you can only do, for example, if I create a request for 100 laptops, I can just create, that's it. I can't approve it. Another person approves it. Okay. And when the other person approves it, that person cannot release purchase orders. The another person has to release purchase orders. But this is a clear segregation. My duty is only this. So that is one thing that has to be understood and put into the system. And then there is another way of looking at it. That is hierarchy. When I say hierarchy, a purchase manager can release purchase orders up to, let's say, 1 lakh. There has to be somebody else who's above him who can release up to 10 lakhs. If it is above 1 CR, 1 crore, it has to go to the managing director. Now, this hierarchy has to be defined in the system. And while defining this in the system, has to be put into the system in such a manner that the moment the purchase order amount is so and so, it has to go to those levels. Okay, so what in SAP technical terms we call is workflow. And what I mean by workflow is the moment I put in a purchase order, system will check who has to approve it, and it goes and sits in their mailbox. The way we configure it, there can be a link that goes to his email box, or within SAP there's an inbox where it goes the way we want it, or you can even send an SMS or whatever. Those things has to be configured in the system. Now these configurations are done here during the explore phase. Now after having done the we don't configure it, sorry, we design those configurations. Whatever has to be done are being designed here. We document it. Okay, whatever is required, SOD, the various fonts, the way the logo has to be, etc. All these things are designed in the explore phase. Then comes the realize phase. This is where you actually configure the system. Till now, whatever I spoke has been all been using MS Word, Excel, PowerPoint, or whatever, or slides, or any of those Google tools, wherein we have not done anything in the system per se. Maybe we'll be showing certain things in the system, but during the realize phase, we build the system. What I mean by building the system is we do the configurations, tweaking is done, and if there are any certain programs that are required to be developed, that is developed in the realize phase. Just to give you another piece of information, if you are creating a non-standard code or creating an additional code in SAP, to identify that this is a non-standard code, what we do is we call it as Z or Z or Y. Most commonly, the program is called as Z, and we technically call it a Z code or a non-standard code. Okay, Z, that is Z. The way you pronounce it is left to you. Nobody says it as Z code, it is Z code. Okay, those coding is done, and then when you do something non-standard, you will have to test it. Multiple testings are done here. When I say multiple testing, one is unit testing, wherein I explained earlier also, a finance guy does only the finance testing. The materials guy does only the materials testing, like he'll create a purchase order and release it. Okay, and then he will create a goods inward and he will just check it whether it is all working fine. That's it. Then comes the integration testing. It is here. Please excuse me, I can complete my coffee in those 10 minutes. Okay, so in those in the integration testing, what happens is everybody sits in one common place. They define the document, the flow that was there in the explore phase. They bring it up, and then they start creating one after other documents. Whichever is the starting point, they start creating the initial documents, and as they keep creating those documents, the end-to-end process is seen whether it is working fine. An example, I create a purchase order for 10,000 rupees, and vendor gives in the goods inward for, let's say, 10 products. The goods inward should be only for 10 products. It should not accept 11th product. Or if you want to say that 11th product can also be accepted but should be kept aside. Now, these are things that you decide in the explore phase and put it in the realize